This is the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.
Dallas Cowboys first-round draft pick Tyler Booker said the other day that the Cowboys' play from team lore that he remembers best was the 2016 Zeke Elliott touchdown run against the Steelers to win that game in Dak and Zeke's rookie year. When that play happened, Tyler Booker was 12. Welcome to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. How old does that make you feel?
I was already
the relatively
feeling old.
ancient Mike Leslie and Andrew Cely here with you. Can you believe that?
I don't need to think about that. The only thing I'm happy about is that it's not another Luka Doncic-based show, all right? We finally have something else to talk about in Dallas
Hallelujah.
land. And let's get right into it with what's on the show.
Here's What's on the Show, sponsored by NFM.
Aside a reminder of our own mortality, the NFL draft is in the rearview mirror. We'll take a hard look at the 2025 Cowboys draft class and whether they did indeed get better. The draft featured one of the most controversial storylines in recent memory, Shedeur Sanders dropping from potential first-round pick to the 5th round. We'll weigh in on that. And on that note, it's the turn of the top 5 with a special look at the most shocking and entertaining draft slides in recent memory. That's what's on the show, Mike. Now, who's on the show?
On the show today, a gentleman who was not 12 in 2016, Glenn Stretch Smith, our Cowboys analyst, good enough to join us tonight.
The hole,
as always. What else do I do but that? Stretch, we appreciate you joining us as always. What did you make of the Dallas Cowboys draft class here in 2025 and where they stand after this last weekend?
I think Coach Schottenheimer put a direct stamp immediately on what he wants, which is a bigger, more physical, we're going to come after you and kind of maul you types, big guys up front. What I like and what I got more out of it, fellas, is when you look at the two big defensive tackles, I mean, when was the last time you saw two 330-pound squared stance defensive tackles who were two-gap guys in a game for the Cowboys? I mean, it's always been they wanted, whether it was back to the Rod Marinelli days and they wanted the stagger stance guys and get up the field. Then we got into Mike Zimmer and he wanted those wider guys so he could get, more active linebackers in those A gaps. I think Eberflus is saying, hey, I want to get bigger, and you know what? We're going to start with stopping the run. And I think that's exactly what I got out of this draft was them saying, we're going to get more physical as a football team.
The selection of Booker off the top. First of all, the excitement was there, which is great to see. It still exists with the star. I know we like to poke fun at sometimes how much the star is kind of diminished in recent memories when he's talking about his childhood memories being a team that didn't win the Super Bowl. But to still see that level of excitement, to still see an offensive lineman that, first of all, can run. Clearly, watching him run down the hallway, but more importantly, sets the tone. And I felt like you kind of hit the nail on the head, Coach, which was Schottenheimer said he wanted to run the ball. First pick, guard. Even though there were some splash picks on there, which we know they did with CeeDee Lamb a couple of years back, and God knows where they'd be if they didn't make that pick at that time right now with the wide receiver core. But they put the emphasis on we got to control the line of scrimmage, especially with the Eagles across the way.
You're exactly right, Andrew. That's the message they're sending, not only to the Eagles, but to Dan Quinn and, quite frankly, to the rest of the division. And I think it's going to be great to, go to training camp and see how different training camp is, see how things are going to shape up with they've got they drafted 2 backs. They signed 2 backs in free agency. So I don't want to get out ahead of the show and what you guys are doing, but when you look at what they want to do, I think this is more than just saying they want to run the football. They're showing we are going to run the football.
I like the player. I don't love the pick only because 12 is awfully rich for an offensive guard, but I keep bringing myself back to the thought of 5 years from now when we look back at this draft, it's not going to matter as much exactly where these guys went from a number perspective in the order. It's going to matter who got a player and who didn't. And I do think the Cowboys got a player in Tyler Booker. I think he's going to be a plug-and-play starter for them. I think he has the goods to be able to potentially grow into a very good player for this team. And if that is what happens here, the fact that it was 6 to 8 picks earlier at the very least, then you should probably take a guard, if not a whole lot more than that, depending on who you ask. if they got a player, they got a player, and it seems like they really may have.
And I think you make a good point, Mike. I mean, it doesn't, when you draft an offensive lineman that high, it doesn't feel very sexy. I know, Randy Galloway's calling me, "They draft the Longhorn receiver." I mean, and I'm like, "Hey, bud."
That's a pretty good impression.
Yeah, they put them up there with numbers, and they have to trust in how they put them up there. And if Booker had that much better, let's say, draft number than anybody else, that's who you have to pick. And I think that's what you saw them do. And when we talk about it being sexy, Mike and Andrew, does that mean that are we just looking at the first round? Because you look at those first 3 picks and they were all graded better than where the Cowboys picked them. So where we say, well, that doesn't look very sexy. Now you look at the 3 picks and you think, well, maybe they did better than, than what this first round pick looks like, which is Booker chugging it up that hallway and tugging on the back of his britches.
Coach,
he was fired up, man.
Yeah, that's a good segue, though. In terms of who we got, who's the person you're eyeing that's going to be the surprise from this group?
I think Ravel. I mean, I looked at him, and I'm, this is a young man that he only played in 3 games this last year, and he had 2 interceptions in those 3 games. Then he gets hurt in practice, tears his ACL. But you watch him initially, you put him on at East Carolina, and everybody's thinking, well, we need an SEC player. We need hey, he is long and he is big, and when you see that, all of a sudden now you got to look at the entire. I think that the whole puzzle, and you got to say, okay, Diggs and Bland, and yeah, we lost Lewis, but all of a sudden we're a lot longer in the secondary, maybe than they've been in a long time.
He's one of the best stories in the draft. Savone Ravel, the kid out of East Carolina that they took in the 3rd round. To your point, if not for the ACL injury, probably would have been a first-round pick, and even despite the ACL injury, was viewed by many as a second-round pick, and Dallas gets him at number 76 in the 3rd round. So even with that in consideration, it's a big-time value pick for the Cowboys. And this is a guy that was, at one point in time, working at an Amazon overnight distribution warehouse, multiple serious injuries, stuck with East Carolina, even though some of the SEC programs you're talking about wanted him after his first year at East Carolina. This is a kid who's got a whole mess of talent, and as he gets healthy over the course of the summer, they think potentially even during training camp, probably will start training camp on PUP, but then come off hopefully pretty quickly thereafter. This is a kid that's got some serious talent and could be a real player for them for a while. 100%.
And my guy from this group, I'll just throw it out there, Jaden Blue. They've needed a dynamic running back for a while. He showed a lot in Texas's offense, and he was versatile, mobile in all phases of the game. And even if he's a fraction of that, if he turns into Tony Pollard to some degree, that's a huge help for an offense that needs that extra weapon.
It's a great pick in the 5th round if they get Tony Pollard out of that pick. The other one that we do need to mention that we hadn't just yet, Donovan Ezeraku. He was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year that they got in the 2nd round. He's a really, really talented kid that could be a pretty quick impact player for the Cowboys there on the edge. A lot more to get to here on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. We're going to talk about the slide of Shedeur Sanders, Mike Leslie, Andrew Cely, Glenn Stretch Smith, and the dime store Randy Galloway. Back after this on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
Today's headlines, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers.
The Rangers come up short in a 3-2 walk-off loss to the Giants today, making it 3 straight series losses. Texas will next host the Athletics to kick off a 4-game set tomorrow night. And Luka Doncic and the Lakers come up short in an incredible Game 4 loss to the T-Wolves. Minnesota now leads that first-round series 3-1.
Said I wasn't going to talk about Luka.
Show.
Yeah, exactly. But here we go. We're back to it. But no, you saw the Mavs get out of a quote-unquote cult of personality situation where Luka could have been controlling the team from inside and out. I think a lot of people were trying to avoid that same fate with Shedeur, and I think that's why he went from potential top 5 pick to fifth round. Mike, what do you think?
He was going to be the 2nd overall pick, the 3rd overall pick, 6th, 9th, 21st. And he drops all the way to the 5th round. There's so many layers to what happened over the course of this weekend. And there are so many factors at play into why I think teams struggled with the concept of drafting him. I think if you look at just what he does on the field, I don't think he's a first-round talent, but I think he's a second-round talent.
I think that's
certainly
fair.
a third, like he's a day 2 guy at the very least. For him to drop all the way to the 5th round, this was a lot more than just what he does on the field. Stretch, what did you think of the fact that he dropped and how far he dropped?
Yeah, shocking how far he dropped.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, guys, that when you show an appearance of, confidence, that's good. I think you walk a fine line with being confident, and I think a lot of people take it differently than that. And then when the name on the back of your jersey says Sanders, and we know your dad has a gold jacket, I just think there's a lot of things that went into this. If you just flip on the tape and you watch him make plays and you watch him make throws and you watch him take a university that, quite frankly, guys, it was bad football when Carl Durrell was a head coach at Colorado. And you saw what he did and how he did it. I think there's something to be said for people just being almost intimidated of maybe dealing with Deion, maybe knowing that Deion is going to be at camp some. And like any dad, he would certainly want to be there, but it's not going to be like any other dad showing up at camp and supporting their son. He's going to have a sideline pass, and he's going to be in the mid, and all the cameras are going to be on him. And I don't know that a lot of people can really, be comfortable in their own skin dealing with that.
I think there's a lot of people that have to be comfortable in their own skin in that situation because of everything that does come along with Shedeur and Deion and the entourage and the video crew and all of these things, where if you see Shedeur Sanders as your starting quarterback, you can make your peace with all of the hoopla that surrounds Shedeur. If he's going to be your backup, which if you're drafting him in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, he's going to probably be your backup quarterback. Think about Cooper Rush. Think about just about any backup quarterback in this league. You don't really ever hear anything about him unless the starter gets hurt. That's not going to be the situation with Shedeur Sanders. So you have to have a starting quarterback that has the chutzpah to deal with that. You have to have a head coach that has the confidence to deal with the idea of Deion Sanders kind of just lurking there under the surface as a guy who's had success coaching at the collegiate level. And even though he kind of poo-pooed the idea this particular offseason of going to the NFL, it's kind of in the ether that maybe at some point, where else is he going to go but the place that his son is playing? So when you draft this kid, do you immediately sign your walking papers? That has to factor into the evaluation, not the evaluation, but I think the nerves of any of these GMs, these coaches, and even by extension now, whoever the quarterback's going to be, whether it's Deshaun Watson or anybody else there in Cleveland, all of these people have to deal now with that threat of their job.
And guys, let's be honest. Everybody has a certain sense of insecurity with who they are. I got my own insecurities. Everybody has
Amen,
that.
buddy.
And so
I
think dealing with, I think as a head coach, think about the offensive coordinator having to deal with that. Think about, hey, I've got to design something to help him be successful for fear that, I could get the wrath of the Colorado head coach looking right down this script and saying, what the hell did you make that call for?
Mm-hmm. Coach, I want to follow up, though, because I feel like the Browns made a statement by taking Gabriel above Shedeur, and I feel like that was because they very easily could have swapped picks and no one would bat an eye. To me, because once they took Gabriel, I was sitting there thinking, who is going to take Shedeur, and was he going to just fall out of the draft entirely, which would have been a huge insult. My question to you is them taking Gabriel before Shedeur not a nice way, but a subtle way of saying, we don't think you're as good as this guy, and trying to light another personal fire under Shedeur before he steps on the field as a member of the Cleveland Browns, because they've already got 3 other quarterbacks on that roster that'll be vying for playing time. No surprise to anyone, the Browns have a mess at the quarterback position.
How much fun would we have if Jimmy Haslam owned this team? I think we'd be on this show for 2.5 hours, just tossing it back and forth and back and forth. Did they send a message? Maybe. Do they want to make sure that they have their bases covered? Maybe was he the best player on their board? I mean, that's a possibility. So they just said, hey, let's take him. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, we'll go a different direction. It's not like Cleveland's done a great job of picking quarterbacks, whether it's Tim Couch or we need to start calling roll in the mistake by the lake.
That list of jerseys, yeah.
Yeah, it's adding 2 more at a minimum here. We'll see what happens where that's concerned.
Everything he just said is why the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is a daily talk show that is 2 hours long, because they got a bag on the Browns all the time.
Top 5 NFL draft slides. Stay with us in the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
And now it's time for the top 5.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Time now for the top 5, and this week we're counting down the top 5 most shocking draft day slides in NFL history prior to this year. In making this list, one caveat, I put an emphasis on watchability. How tuned in were you during things going haywire? We'll start with one that seems ridiculous in hindsight, and this was ridiculous in real time too. Lamar Jackson in 2018. The Heisman Trophy winner showcased incredible talent at Louisville, but a lot of NFL teams were skeptical. Hall of Famer Bill Polian thought Jackson would be better off switching to wide receiver. Ravens traded back into the first round and took Jackson 32nd overall. Safe to say it turned out all right. 2-time league MVP has certainly changed mine since. Coach, your thoughts here?
Got to have discernment when you're pulling that trigger. You better have a good feeling when it comes time to making that pick.
Moving on, number 4, Johnny Manziel. Johnny Football entered the draft after an electrifying college career, helped out a little bit by Mike Evans and company. Already a name brand before entering the NFL, Manziel could have made waves in a draft without a clear top talent at quarterback. That's not how it turned out. The Jags took Blake Bortles 2nd overall, and the slide began past the Browns at 8. Then the Cowboys at 16, who took Zach Martin, until finally the Browns did take him at 22 overall. He only lasted 2 years in the league, but Mike, his slide was pretty entertaining.
A little bit of everything with him was entertaining to watch over the course of his time at Texas A&M and afterward. This time around, the slide was not only warranted, but it wasn't long enough, as it turns out. His career went nowhere. So it was interesting. Shoot, I don't think anybody saw him being that spare in the NFL after he was so electrifying in the college ranks. But yeah, it turned out that he deserved to slide.
Just wish I was in the Cowboys draft room during that whole process. All right, number 3, the godfather of quarterback slides, Dan Marino in 1983. Unsubstantiated rumors about Marino being a party animal at Pitt included drug use, turned a lot of teams off to him. Future Hall of Famer ended up being the 6th quarterback selected in the 1983 NFL draft, which sounds crazy. His hometown Steelers even passed on him until Shula and the Dolphins ended his slide at number 27 overall. Coach, how much do you remember about this one?
You know, a little bit. I mean, I can remember how quick the release was. We remember all about Dan Marino and what he did at Pitt, and then when he started sliding, and I think he wore that chip on his shoulder the whole time until he got a gold jacket.
For my money, and this may be a bit controversial, the single best thrower of the football I think I've ever personally seen.
Such a radical opinion. I've never heard that before. All right, here, moving on. For sheer shock value,
more controversial.
at number 2, Laramie Tunsil.
Oh, this one was
objectively
ridiculous.
one of the craziest scenarios we've ever seen. Tunsil, certified top 5 pick in terms of talent. A video of him surfaced smoking a foreign substance with a gas mask only minutes before the first round. The video was actually posted on his hacked Twitter account. Happened minutes before the draft began. The first real impact live social media had on the draft. He only slid to 13, but how it happened is nightmare fuel. Mike, your thoughts here?
I was in Chicago for this one, for the draft, because that was the year the Cowboys took Zeke, and the entire media room went nuts at the same time. Like, what is he doing? Why is he posting this? And obviously, very quickly, it became part of the conversation. He must have gotten hacked. The fact that it was his dad, though, is just the worst part about all of this. Ugly, ugly situation. And good for Laramie Tunsil. He's turned out to have a very nice career. So it all has worked out okay. But that one was ugly and not cool on so many levels.
Absolutely not. And finally, at number 1, it's the one everyone thinks about when they think of quarterback slides. Eventual Super Bowl champion, 4-time NFL MVP, Aaron Rodgers, sliding from going number 1 overall to his childhood team all the way down to number 24 in the Packers. Probably the best thing that could have happened to him. An example that your draft number does not dictate your success in the league. Coach, am I a little too biased putting Rodgers number 1 here?
No, you're not, because you know what? I think there are still people that might pass on Aaron Rodgers today because of his personality and how quirky he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a whole other can of worms.
I was going to say, they got the personality defects right. I will say that. But, Mike, my question is this. Does Shedeur top the list now?
I don't know how he doesn't. This was all time. This was all to go from 2 to 3 to 6 to 9 to 21 to, of course, he's going to be a day 2 pick, to going all the way to the 5th round. I don't know how this doesn't go to the top of the list.
Coach, your thoughts? Is he on your list or not?
It's magna cum laude. Put him at the top. I mean, it's beyond that. I mean, everybody. I've never felt so bad for a guy. I mean, it was first round, it was second round, it was third round, and for crying out loud, I think Shedeur Sanders even built a new swimming pool out in Canton during that time frame.
He's so
to
sad.
The kids who hacked his phone number. Dirty pool. Dirty pool.
We could go on forever about that. Coach, thank you so much for your time on this Sunday. We really appreciate it. Stay with us. Mike's Final Take coming up next. I think all of us are kind of ready to start turning the page. I'm sorry, the Stars, but Wings coming up here pretty soon. It's going to be really exciting to see Paige Beckers already on the court. Should be really exciting to see how they pull things off. Did
you see the back and forth between her and Dejanay Carrington today on Twitter? They're already slinging jabs at each other. They're already having fun. They're going to be a fun team to watch.
Absolutely. All right, Mike's Final Take.
I really like the Dallas Cowboys draft. I promise you, I really do. I think they did a really good job with the first-round pick, even though maybe a little bit rich taking him at 12. Love Ezaraku in the second round. Love getting Ravel in the third round. They did a lot of really good things. I think Jaden Blue can be a playmaker for this team as long as he figures out the ball security element of his game. They did a lot of really good things in this draft. The problem with the Dallas Cowboys draft is the fact that they set themselves up for failure by failing to do anything in the other parts of the offseason. Stephen Jones always talks about how player acquisition in this league is a 24/7, 365 job. Apparently for the Dallas Cowboys, except for the first 3 days of the NFL season, because they don't want to spend money at that time of year, and as a result, they still do not have a number 2 wide receiver as they come out of this draft, and that's a problem.
That's a problem, and you know who else needs help? Otter. Someone help him. Seriously.
Please, because that was ugly on Saturday night.
Absolutely. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
This has been the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.